Maya stood quietly outside the restaurant. The golden lights inside made everything look expensive and beautiful. She looked down at her simple but neat dress. It wasn't designer, but it was her favorite. Her hands were shaking just a little. Tonight was important. She took a deep breath and walked inside. The waiter led her to the table that her adoptive family had reserved. Maya arrived early, just like she always did. She wanted to be polite. She wanted to make a good impression. She sat down and waited, her eyes moving around the room. Everyone looked rich, dressed in fancy clothes, laughing, drinking wine. Maya smiled gently, trying to feel like she belonged. But deep inside, she wasn't sure. Then the doors opened. Her adoptive mother, Karen, walked in first, wearing pearls, and a cold smile. Her father, Richard, followed with a straight face. Behind them were her siblings, Emma and David. They were tall, dressed perfectly, and both looked like they had walked out of a magazine. Karen looked at Maya's dress and raised an eyebrow. "Oh," she said. "You wore that, Richard." Didn't say hello. He just sat down and looked at his phone. Emma and David didn't smile either. They sat, looked around the restaurant, and laughed softly to each other. Maya stood up, smiled, and said, "Hi, I'm so happy to see you all." Karen rolled her eyes. "You don't have to pretend, Maya. Let's just eat and get this over with." Maya's heart sank, but she sat down quietly. She reached for the menu, trying to keep her hands from shaking. Emma looked at her and said loudly, "You know, this place is really elegant. I wonder if they've ever had someone from your background here before." David laughed. "Yeah, you sure you're in the right restaurant?" Maya looked down at her menu. Her chest felt tight. She didn't want to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Karen leaned in. "You don't belong in this world, Maya, and deep down, you know it." Maya's fingers curled around her napkin. Still, she said nothing. The waiter came and took their orders. Karen ordered lobster. Richard wanted steak. Emma and David both got expensive wine. When the waiter turned to Maya, she just said, "Water, please." Karen smirked. "Of course. Water." The whole table laughed softly. Suddenly, Maya's phone buzzed in her purse. She looked at the screen and smiled just a little. She wiped a tear from her cheek and whispered, "He's almost here." Emma leaned forward. "He?" Karen raised her eyebrows. "Oh, don't tell me you're dating someone now." Richard finally looked up. "Who would want to be with you?" David added with a smirk. "Let me guess. Someone from your old neighborhood?" Maya didn't answer. She just looked at the door. They kept laughing. The whole table was enjoying the moment. But then, the restaurant door opened again. Everyone turned their heads. A tall, strong man walked in. He wore a clean military uniform with medals on his chest. His boots echoed on the floor with every step. He had dark skin, short-cut hair, and eyes that looked calm, yet powerful. People at other tables turned to look. The waiter paused, unsure of what to do. The man walked straight across the room, past the bar, past the wine shelves, and stopped at Maya's table. He looked down at her with a soft smile. "Sorry I'm late," he said gently. Maya stood up. He took her hand, kissed it slowly, and whispered, "You okay?" She nodded, holding back tears. The table was silent. Richard stood up fast. "Who are you?" he asked sharply. The man looked at him calmly and said just one line. "Her husband." Silence. Not a single sound at the table, not even a breath. Karen's mouth hung open. Emma blinked. David looked confused. Richard just stared. The man looked around the table, still holding Maya's hand. "I'm here to support my wife. I heard she was having dinner with people who needed to be reminded of her worth." Maya's lips trembled, but this time she smiled. People around the restaurant were watching now. Phones were coming out. The air had changed. This dinner wasn't going the way her family expected, and it was only the beginning. The silence at the table lasted longer than anyone expected. Maya stood beside her husband, holding his hand tightly. Her eyes were wet, but her back was straight now. She didn't look weak anymore. The man beside her, James, stayed calm as he looked at each person at the table. Karen finally found her voice. You married her? When? Why? James didn't. Think years ago. 'Cause I saw what you all never did. David rolled his eyes. This can't be real. A soldier? What's next, Maya? You'll say you're a princess too? Maya sat down slowly and James took the seat beside her. Richard crossed his arms. This is nonsense. What does he even do? Carry bags in the army? James answered without emotion. I'm a decorated officer. I've served in 2 war zones, saved lives. And unlike you, sir, I respect women. Emma scoffed. Is this some kind of game? Are you trying to make us feel bad, Maya? Maya looked at her sister. Her voice was low but clear. No, I'm just tired of hiding, tired of acting like I'm lucky to be around you. I used to believe I was the problem, but I see the truth now. Karen's face turned red. You ungrateful girl. We raised you. We gave you everything. Maya's eyes filled again, but not with sadness this time, with fire. You gave me clothes, yes, a bed, food, but not love, not respect. I was the maid, the charity case. You told people I was your project. Do you know how that felt? The table was quiet again. James gently placed his hand on Maya's back. He whispered, You don't owe them anything. But Maya had more to say. I remember every birthday. You forgot. Every time you left me out of family photos. Every time someone asked, who is she? And you said, just someone we help out. Emma looked down. Even David had stopped smiling now. Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. I spent years trying to earn your love. I brought home good grades. I stayed quiet. I dressed the way you wanted. But it was never enough, was it? Karen snapped. We raised you better than this. James spoke now, looking directly at her. No, you didn't. You raised her to feel small, to feel like she didn't matter. But she does. She matters to me, and to many others. Other people in the restaurant were still watching. Some were whispering. A few were recording. One older woman nearby nodded softly at Maya. Maya looked at her family. You told me no man would want someone like me. You said I was too loud, too emotional, too black. But this man, this soldier, he didn't just want me. He chose me. Richard looked uncomfortable. You made this scene just to embarrass us? Maya stood up. No, you embarrassed yourselves. I came tonight hoping maybe we could start fresh. But instead you reminded me why I walked away. Karen looked at James. And what do you want from us? James smiled slightly. Nothing. Maya doesn't need anything from people who don't see her value. I just came to remind her of who she is, and to let you know she's never alone again. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Maya turned to the waiter. Could we move to another table, please? The waiter nodded quickly and said, Yes, ma'am. Right this way. As Maya and James walked away, Emma whispered, Maya, wait. Maya paused but didn't turn around. You really love him? Maya turned her head slightly and said, More than you'll ever understand. Then she walked away, head high, James by her side. They moved to a quiet corner of the restaurant. Maya looked at James, her voice softer now. That was harder than I thought. James took her hand. You were strong. I'm proud of you. She smiled through the tears. I've always wanted to say those things, but I thought maybe I was overreacting. James shook his head. You weren't. And tonight you stood up for yourself. That's something they never expected. Maya nodded. I don't want to fight with them, but I don't want to be silent anymore. You won't have to be, James said. Not ever again. Later that night, Maya sat on the couch in her small but warm home. James brought her a cup of tea and sat beside her. The evening at the restaurant kept replaying in her mind. She stared at the cup and whispered, Do you think I went too far? James touched her hand gently. No, you spoke your truth, and they needed to hear it. Maya nodded slowly, but she still looked unsure. They raised me, I didn't want to hate them. But now I don't even know if they ever loved me. James looked into her eyes. Some people only love the idea of helping others, not the people themselves. Maya sighed. I was their adopted daughter, but they never let me forget the word adopted. James leaned back. You're not a project. You're a person, and to me, you're everything. Maya smiled softly. Then she stood up and walked over to a drawer. She pulled out an old photo album and brought it to the table. This was me when I first came to them, she said, opening the book. James looked at the photos. Maya was just a child in them, small, quiet, eyes full of hope. But there were almost no pictures of her with the family. Most pages were filled with Emma and David, birthdays, vacations, holidays. Then Maya stopped on one picture, a birthday party. Emma had a big cake. Maya was standing in the corner, barely visible. They always told me to stay out of the way, she whispered. James shook his head. They tried to make you feel invisible. Maya closed the album. I'm done being invisible. Just then, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Emma. Can we talk? I need to tell you something. Maya stared at the screen. James saw the look on her face. Are you going to answer her? I don't know, Maya said quietly. Why now? James put his arm around her. Only talk to her if you want to, not because you feel guilty. Maya didn't answer, but her eyes didn't leave the phone. The next day, Maya stood outside a small coffee shop waiting. She had agreed to meet Emma, just to hear what she had to say. Emma arrived a few minutes later. Her perfect makeup was gone. She looked nervous. Hi, Emma said softly. Maya nodded. Hi. They sat down inside. The waitress brought them coffee, and for a moment, they just sat in silence. Then Emma spoke. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, Maya looked at her. For what? For everything, Emma said. The way we treated you, the things we said. I used to think you didn't notice, but now I see. You noticed everything. Maya stayed quiet. Emma continued. I was jealous. You were stronger than me. And I hated that. Maya raised an eyebrow. Stronger? You had everything. Emma's voice cracked. No, Maya. I had everything outside. But inside I was always scared. You were different. You didn't care what people thought. You had your own light. And I hated that the most. Maya looked down at her cup. Her hands were shaking a little. Emma leaned forward. There's something else. Something our parents never told you. Maya looked up, surprised. What? Emma hesitated, then she took a deep breath. You weren't just adopted, Maya frowned. What do you mean? Emma's eyes watered. You were given away by someone in our extended family. You're not a stranger to us, Maya. You're blood. Maya's mouth dropped open. What? Emma nodded. Our father's cousin. He had a child when he was young. A child he wasn't ready for. That child was you. Maya leaned back in her chair, her heart was racing. All this time, she whispered. I thought I didn't belong because I was different. But I was family the whole time. Emma nodded again. But they didn't want people to know. They didn't want the shame. So they adopted you, quietly. Told everyone you were from a shelter. Maya covered her mouth. They lied to me my whole life. Emma wiped her eyes. I know, I hated it too. But I was a coward. I didn't speak up. Maya sat in silence. Her world was spinning. Then she looked up, her eyes full of something new. Not sadness, not anger, power. Thank you for telling me, she said. Emma nodded, ashamed. Maya stood up. I don't know what I'll do with this yet. But now, I finally know the truth. She turned and walked toward the door. And this time, Emma didn't stop her. The sun was setting when Maya reached home. Her heart was still heavy. What Emma had told her at the cafe kept playing in her mind. She sat on the porch watching the sky turn orange. James came outside and sat beside her. He looked at her face and asked gently, How did it go? Maya didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, I'm not just adopted, James. I'm blood. James frowned. What do you mean? She told him everything about her real connection to the family, about the cousin, about the lie that covered up her whole life. James listened quietly, never interrupting. When she finished, he took a deep breath. "That's a lot. How do you feel?" "I don't know," Maya said. Angry, sad, but not broken, just clear. James held her hand. "You have every right to feel all those things, but I want you to remember something important. Their shame doesn't define you. Their silence doesn't erase your worth." Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. "I think I need to confront them," James nodded. "Then I'll go with you." The next day, Maya stood in front of the large white house she once called home. James stood beside her, calm and strong. She rang the doorbell. Karen opened the door and immediately scowled. "What are you doing here?" Maya didn't flinch. "We need to talk, all of us." Karen tried to close the door, but James stepped forward. "Let her speak." Richard came to the door behind her. "Let them in," he said quietly. Inside, Emma and David were already seated in the living room. The air was tense. Maya stood in the center. "I know everything now, about the cousin, about the truth, about why you adopted me quietly." Karen looked shocked. "Emma told you?" "Yes," Maya said firmly, "and I'm glad she did." Karen crossed her arms. "We were protecting you." "No," Maya said, her voice steady. "You were protecting yourselves. You didn't want people to know there was a secret baby in the family. A black baby." Richard spoke now. "That's not fair," Maya interrupted. "No, you weren't fair. You made me feel like I didn't belong for years, but I was blood all along." Karen's face turned cold. "We gave you everything." "No," Maya said sharply. "You gave me clothes and food. But you didn't give me love, you didn't give me truth. I spent my whole life feeling like a guest in this house." David looked uncomfortable. Emma stayed quiet. James stood beside Maya, silent but strong. Maya turned to her adoptive parents. "Why didn't you just tell me?" Richard looked down. "We were ashamed. We didn't want our family name dragged through the mud." "So you buried me in silence?" Maya asked, her voice breaking. "You let me grow up thinking I was a stranger," Karen snapped. "You were lucky we even took you in." James stepped forward now, voice calm but firm. "No, she was never lucky. You were lucky. Lucky to have her in your home. And you didn't even see it." Karen looked away. Maya took a deep breath. "I'm not here for your guilt. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want you to understand what you did and how it broke me." Richard looked at her with tired eyes. "What do you want from us now?" Maya shook her head. "Nothing. I just wanted you to hear the truth. From me." She turned to leave, but Emma stood up. "Wait," she said. "There's one more thing." Maya paused. Emma took out a folded paper and handed it to Maya. "It's a letter," Emma said. "From the cousin. Your birth father. He wrote it years ago. Mom kept it hidden." Maya took the letter with trembling hands. She looked at Karen. "You hid this from me?" Karen stayed silent. Maya opened the letter. The words were shaky, written with guilt and pain. "Dear Maya, I'm sorry. I was young and scared. I didn't know how to be a father. I let others make choices for me. But not a day goes by that I don't think of you. I hope one day you'll understand." Robert. Maya's eyes filled with tears again. But this time they were different. Softer, sad, but healing. She folded the letter and held it close. Then she looked around the room, the house where she had once felt so small. "I'm done with the lies," she said, "and I'm done chasing your approval." And with that, Maya walked out, James by her side once again. Maya sat by her bedroom window, holding the old letter in her hands. The words from Robert, her birth father, stayed in her heart like a quiet echo. She had read it 10 times, maybe more. James walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Still thinking about the letter?" Maya nodded slowly. "He wrote it with pain, but also love. Maybe he regrets everything." James sat beside her. "Do you want to find him?" Maya looked down. "A part of me is scared. What if he doesn't want to see me? What if he's moved on?" James took her hand. You'll never know unless you try. You've already faced more than most people ever do. You have every right to know the truth." She squeezed his hand gently. Later that day, Maya searched online using the name written on the letter, Robert Miles. After hours of scrolling and checking old addresses, she finally found something. A small town 2 hours away, a local repair shop, and a man named Robert Miles listed as the owner. Maya stared at the screen. Her heart raced. James placed his hand on her shoulder. "Let's go." 2 hours later, Maya stood in front of a small garage. The sign read, Miles Auto Repair. It was quiet, except for the sound of tools clinking inside. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. An older man with gray at his temples and oil on his hands stepped out. He looked strong, but tired. His eyes met hers, and something in them paused. "Can I help you?" he asked, wiping his hands. Maya hesitated. "Are you Robert Miles?" He nodded. "That's me." She took another breath. "My name is Maya. I think you're my father." Robert froze. The wrench in his hand dropped to the ground. "What did you say?" She held up the letter. "You wrote this years ago?" He looked at it slowly, carefully, and then his hands began to shake. "You're her," he whispered. "You're my daughter." Maya nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes." Robert sat down on an old chair near the wall. He looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. "I always wondered if someone would bring that letter to me," he said softly. "I never knew if you'd ever see it." Maya sat beside him. "Why did you give me away?" Robert looked down, ashamed. "I was 19, scared. Your mother had just passed. I was alone. And my family. They didn't want a child with dark skin. They said it would ruin everything. So, they forced me to give you to someone else in the family." Maya wiped her eyes. "They told me I was adopted. They never told me the truth." Robert nodded slowly. "They wanted to hide the shame. But it was never you. You were never the shame. It was them." Maya whispered. "I grew up thinking I was unwanted." Robert looked at her, eyes full of regret. "You were never unwanted. I loved you the moment I held you. I just didn't have the strength to fight them." Silence fell between them. Then Robert stood up. He walked to a shelf and pulled down an old, dusty box. He opened it and pulled out a photo of a baby girl wrapped in a blanket. "This was you," he said. "I've kept this all these years." Maya looked at the photo and gasped. She had never seen this one before. "I talked to this photo every birthday," Robert said. "Every year. I'd tell it I was sorry, that I loved her, that maybe one day she'd come find me." Tears streamed down Maya's face. She reached out and hugged him. For the first time, father and daughter were no longer strangers. Later that night, back home, Maya sat with James, telling him everything. She smiled through her tears. "I thought I went to that shop to find a man I'd never met," she said, "but somehow it felt like coming home." James smiled. "I'm proud of you." Maya looked at the photo again, the baby photo Robert had saved. "I think I want to go back," she said. "Not just to visit, but to get to know him, to rebuild something real." James nodded. "I'll be with you, every step of the way." Maya looked out the window. The world still had pain, still had wounds, but tonight she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. 1 month later, the city held a community awards night every year at the same fancy restaurant where Maya had once been mocked. This year, something was different. Maya had been invited to speak. She didn't want revenge, she didn't care for applause, but she knew one thing. It was time to speak her truth. James adjusted her dress collar gently. "You ready?" Maya nodded. "Yes, for the first time, I really am." Inside the restaurant, people gathered, business owners, social workers, teachers. Her adoptive family was there too, sitting at a long table. Karen, Richard, David, and Emma. They didn't know Maya was speaking tonight. Maya stepped onto the small stage. The room quieted. Everyone turned to look. She held the microphone with steady hands. "Good evening," she began. "Some of you know me, some don't. My name is Maya Miles." Karen's face twitched at the sound of that last name. Maya continued, "I grew up in a house where I was told I was adopted, but no one ever told me the full story. I was raised by people who said they loved me, but their actions never matched their words." The room was still. They mocked my skin, my voice, my laugh, even the way I walked. And for years I stayed silent. I thought maybe I deserved it. Maybe I wasn't enough. Karen shifted uncomfortably. Richard avoided eye contact. "But recently," Maya said, her voice clear, "I discovered something. The truth. The people who adopted me were my own blood, my own family, but they were too ashamed to admit it." Gasps echoed through the room. "I also found my real father. He had been silenced too, but even in his fear he wrote me a letter full of love, a letter that led me home." Tears rolled down Maya's cheeks, but her voice remained strong. "I stand here not to shame anyone. I stand here for every child who was told they didn't belong, for every voice that was told to stay quiet, for every soul that waited for love." James stood at the back, proud and still. "I am not broken," Maya said. "I am not ashamed, and I am not invisible. I am Maya Miles, daughter, wife, and woman of worth." The room rose in applause. Everyone stood, except her adoptive parents. Karen looked stunned. Richard wiped his face. Emma quietly clapped, tears in her eyes. After the speech, Maya stepped down from the stage. People came up to her, strangers who thanked her, hugged her, called her brave. But Maya's eyes searched for only one person, her father. Robert Miles stood near the door, smiling with wet eyes. He had come. They embraced tightly. "You were amazing," he whispered. "I just told the truth," Maya said. "And the truth," Robert replied, "has set you free." 1 week later, Maya and James visited Robert's garage again. This time they didn't just visit. They helped him repaint the front sign. Together they painted new letters across the wood. "Miles and daughter. Honest auto repairs." Robert smiled. "Been waiting years to add that." Maya laughed. "Worth the wait." Back at home, a letter arrived at Maya's doorstep. It was from Emma. "Dear Maya, I'm sorry for my silence all these years. I should have protected you. I should have told you the truth. You are the strongest person I know. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. Love, Emma." Maya folded the letter. She didn't know if she would ever reconnect with that side of her family, but she didn't feel empty anymore. She had found herself. That night, she and James sat on the porch watching the stars. "You feel different," James said softly. Maya smiled. "I am." She leaned on his shoulder. "I'm not chasing love anymore," she said, "because I've found it. In myself, in you, and in the people who choose me, not just accept me." And as the wind moved gently across the trees, Maya closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she finally felt whole.